Hey YouTube, this is Agent Rep, and with me once again is...
Journeyman Snip, and welcome back to Dragon Age of Veilguard. We're going to continue reading from the Codex, and just remember this is rated M for mature, so some things may not be appropriate for young children.
Yep, so let's continue... Oh, wrong button. Let's continue the Codex. We were on Lyrium last time. So... Oh, whoops.
Lyrium. Lyrium is the king of metals. Beneath our feet it sinks. When properly refined, it is a smooth, slightly iridescent, silvery liquid in the hands of the dwarven smith Cost. It is mixed with steel to produce indestructible armor and blades that hold an edge for centuries in the hands of the Shaperite. It becomes a repository for living memories, and some scholars maintain this as evidence that lyrium is itself alive. It finds its most lucrative its application in the hands of the Formari, who use it in conjunction with baser metals like gold, silverite, viridium, or even iron to produce enchantments, though mages of course consume it in a diluted form to bolster their abilities. This is not recommended. Overindulgence in lyrium can have disastrous consequences, particularly in more concentrated amounts. It is not advisable, for instance, that any reader handle raw lyrium, which in many cases can kill on contact. An excerpt from An Alchemical Primer of Metallurgy, Volume 1 by Lord Cerastus of Marnay's Pell.
Yeah, the Shaperite is a huge part of Dwarven culture. Alright, now on to the Magisterium. There's a mistaken impression outside the Tevinter Imperium that a magister is simply a mage, and the mere act of being a mage is all that is required to be among the ruling class. A misconception aided, no doubt, by some Tevinter mages claiming the title outside their homeland to take advantage of its reputation. In truth, being a magister requires one hold a seat in the magisterium, the upper house of the imperial senate. This uh, this is the body that makes laws and which chooses the new archon, if there is no approved heir. The Senate lower house, the
Publicanum.
publicanum, consists of elected officials, but it has no true power and is considered a bureaucratic body. Magisters, meanwhile, come from the ranks of the Circle of Magi and the Imperial Chantry. Most hold their seats by the virtue of an archon having granted it to their family long ago. It is not technically required for a magistrate to be a mage, indeed. After the Transfiguration saw that the old gods abandoned and embraced Andrastianism. Oh, the old gods abandoned and Andrastianism embraced. Most were not. Since the Tower Age, however, non-mages in the magisterium have been slowly weeded out. A true magister is thus a figure of real power in Tevinter. All other mages serve at their pleasure, and any mage not of proper lineage has no influence outside that which personal wealth and talent provide. From the Ancient North by Sister Petrine, Chantry Scholar.
The Maker. There was no word for heaven or for earth, for sea or sky. All that existed was silence. Then the voice of the Maker rang out, the first word, and his word became all that might be. Dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibilities, and from it made his firstborn, And he said to them, "In my image I forge you. To you I give dominion over all that exists. By your will may all things be done." Then in the center of heaven he called forth a city with towers of gold, streets with music for cobblestones, and banners which flew without wind. There he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. The children of the Maker gathered before his golden throne and sang hymns of praise unending. But their songs were the songs of the cobblestones. They shone with the golden light reflected from the Maker's throne. They held forth the banners that flew on their own. And the voice of the Maker shook the fade, saying, "In my image I have wrought my firstborn. You have been given dominion over all that exists. By your will all things are done, yet you do nothing. The realm I have given you is formless, ever changing." And he knew he had wrought amiss. So the Maker turned from his firstborn and took from the fade a measure of its living flesh, and placed it apart from the spirits, and spoke to it, saying, "Here I decree opposition in all things, for earth, sky, for winter, summer, for darkness, light. My will alone is balance sundered, and the world given new life. And no longer was it formless, ever changing, but held fast, immutable, with words for heaven and for earth, sea and sky. At last did the Maker from the living world make men immutable as the substance of the earth, with souls made of dream and idea, hope and fear, endless possibilities. Then the Maker said, "To you, my second-born, I grant this gift. In your heart shall burn an unquenchable flame, all-consuming and never satisfied. From the fade I crafted you, and to the fade you shall return each night in dreams, that you may always remember me." And then the Maker sealed the gates of the golden city, and there he dwelled, waiting to see the wonders his children would create. Renaudis 5, 1 through 8.
Navarre. The fourth time I attempted to cross the border into Navarre from Orleans was turned back by chevaliers. I decided to take the more roundabout path, a ship back to Ferraudin and then another to Navarre. The outcome was more wor- the outcome was more than worth the trouble. The whole country is filled with artistry, from the statues of heroes that litter the streets in even the meanest village to the glittering gold college of Magi in Cumberland. Perhaps nowhere is more astonishing than the vast necropolis outside Navarre city. Unlike most other followers of Andraste, the Navarrans do not burn their dead; instead they carefully preserve the bodies and seal them in elaborate tombs. Some of the wealthiest Navarrans begin to construction of their own tombs while quite young, and these become immaculate, incredible palaces, complete with gardens, bathhouses, and ballrooms, utterly silent, kept only for the dead. From the Pursuit of Knowledge: The Travels of a Chantry Scholar, by Brother Genitivi.
Well, we have the Orlesian Empire. There are many lords and ladies in Val Royal, and I mean this literally. Once the system of noble titles in Orleans was labyrinthine, there were barons and baronesses and baronets and sir barons and a horde of others, each with its own origins and its own nuances of comparison. The Orlesian aristocracy is ancient and much given to competition. All the nobility play the grand game, as it is known, whether they wish to or not. It is a game of reputation and patronage, where moves are made with rumors and scandal is the chief weapon. No gentle game this. More blood has been drawn as a result of the grand game than any war the Elysians have fought. Of this here of this I am assured by almost every gentleman here. As far as titles went, everything changed with the coming of Emperor Dracan, who established the Orlesian Empire as it exists now and who created the Chantry. There is no more venerated figure in Orlais. In Val Roya, the statue of Dracan stands as tall as the statue of Andraste. Dracan determined that the grand game was tearing Orlais apart, so he abolished all titles besides his own and Lord and Lady. I am told with some twittering amusement that this action did not end the grand game as Dracon had intended. Now the lords and ladies collected unofficial titles rather than official ones, such as the exalted patron of Tassus Clay or uncle to the champion of Tremes. It is a headache to remember such titles, and one winces to think of the poor doorman at the balls who must rattle them off as each guest enters the room. The aristocracy is different from Ferelden in other ways as well. The Orlesians' right to rule stems directly from the Maker. There exists neither the concept of rule by merit nor the slightest notion of rebellion. If one is not noble, one aspires to be, or the least aspires to be in the good graces of a noble, and is ever watching for a way to enter the patronage of those better placed in the grand game. And then there are the masks and the cosmetics. I have not seen so much paint since the kennels at High Ever, but that is another story. From Beyond the Frostbacks by Ban Tarok of West Hill, 920 Dragon.
The Qunari. The people of the Qun are perhaps the least understood group in Thedas. The Qunari wars were brutal, but so was the Chantry skirmish. So was the fall of the Imperium. Some of this misunderstanding is an accident of nature. The race we call Qunari are formidable. Nature has given them fierce horns and strange eyes, and the ignorant look on them and see monsters. Some is an accident of language. Few among the Qun's people speak the common tongue, and fewer speak it well. In a culture that strives for mastery, to only have a passable degree of skill is humiliating indeed, so they often keep quiet among foreigners out of shame. But much is the result of the culture itself. The Qunari view their whole society as a single creature, a living entity whose health and well-being is the responsibility of all. Every individual is only a tiny part of the whole, a drop of blood in its veins, not important for itself, but for what it is to the whole creature. Because of this, the Qunari most outsiders meet belong to the army, which the Qun regards as if it were the physical body, arms, legs, eyes, and ears, the things a creature needs in order to interact with the world. One cannot get to know a person solely by studying his hand or foot, or his foot, and someone cannot truly meet the Qunari until one has visited their cities. That is where their mind and soul dwell. In
Saharan.
Saharan and Parvalan, one can truly see the Qunari in their entirety. There, the unification of Qunari into a single being is most evident. Workers whom the Qun calls the mind produce everything the Qunari require. The soul, the priesthood, seeks a greater understanding of the self, the world, and exhorts the body's mind to continuing strive for perfection. The body serves as the go-between for the mind, the soul, and the world. Everyone and everything has a place decided by the Qun, in which they work for the good of the world, for the good of the whole. It is a life of certainty, equality, if not individuality. from the writings of the seer of
Kantar.
Qatar, 841 Blessed.
Ravane. Nowhere in my travels, not in the heart of the Imperium nor the streets of Orzammar, have I left so much an outsider as in Ravane. The chant of light never truly reached the ears of these people. The years they spent under the thumb of the Qunari left most of the country zealous followers of the Qun, but resistance to the chant grows deeper than the Qunari War. The Ravani refuse to be parted from their seers, wise women who are in fact hedge mages, communicating with spirits and actually allowing themselves to become possessed. The chantry prohibition against such magical practices violates millennia of local tradition. From In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivi.
Sexuality in Thedas. What I find most interesting is that despite the lack of an open discussion on the matters of human sexuality, there is commonality to be found on the subject in all Adrastian lands. Typically, one's sexual habits are considered natural and separate from matters of procreation, and only among the nobility where procreation involves issues of inheritance and the union of powerful families is it considered of vital importance. And yet, even there, a noble who has done their duty to their family might be allowed to pursue their own sexual interests without raising eyebrows. The view on indulging lust with a member of the same gender varies from land to land. In Orlais, it is considered a quirk of character and nothing more. In Ferelden it is a matter of scandal if done discreetly, but otherwise nothing noteworthy. In Tevinter it is considered selfish and deviant behavior among nobles, but actively encouraged with favor slaves. Nowhere is it forbidden, and sex of any kind is only considered worthy of judgment when taken to an awful excess or performed in the public eye. From the pursuit from In Pursuit of Knowledge, The Travels of a Chantry Scholar by Brother Genitivity.
Surface dwarfs. In Orzammar, dwarven society is divided into rigid castes, with houses that compete for power and prestige. But all that is disregarded when a dwarf abandons the stone for the surface under the open sky. Everyone is equal, or so the story goes. The truth is that thousands of years of tradition are not so easily tossed aside, even though surface dwarfs are officially stripped of their caste. Many maintain a hierarchy among themselves along the old caste lines. Formerly noble houses are accorded more respect than casteless brands who come up in search of opportunity. The poorest noble dwarf on the surface looks upon the rich lower caste dwarfs with contempt. Upper-class surface dwarf society is roughly divided into two camps: Kalnas, who insist on maintaining caste and rank, typically those from the noble or merchant caste families, and Ascendants, who believe in leaving Orzammar's tradition underground and embracing life in the sunlit world. Maintaining some time to Orzammar was seen for generations as the only lifeline for surface dwarfs. Bringing surface goods to their kin underground and lyrium and metals to the surface was not only the most lucrative means of making a living, but also a sort of sacred duty. As many surface dwarfs willingly accepted exile and the loss of their caste to better serve their house or patron, in recent years many surface dwarfs, particularly ascendants, have branched out. They started banks, mercenary companies, and overland trade caravans. They became investors and speculators in purely surface trade. These new industries have proven tremendous sources of wealth, but are looked down upon by their more conservative king. kin. For less affluent surface dwarfs, association with a powerful Kalna can open many doors. They can get credit with dwarven merchants and are offered work opportunities by the powerful Dwarven Merchants Guild more readily, sometimes than more qualified but less connected individuals. From the Dowager's Field Guide to Good Society by Lady Alcyon. And thank you for listening to the Codex again. We are going to ask you to like, subscribe, comment, tell us what you want to see, what you don't want to see, what you like, what you don't like. But please just keep it polite and have a great day. Bye.
Bye!